stops you from doing this, and hey, there's another way of doing it. That is very amazing learning, at least for me, in the peer supervision.
And like even one of the questions that, or one of the statements that had come up was that, oh, I know that you did it like that, but I could never see myself doing it like that. Like you really went out there and did it. And so then we started then reflecting, okay, but what would stop us from going there? What is making us stay in that habitual position and not allowing ourselves to stretch? And just even being reflective of that is interesting, I think.
So is there something there around the challenge? Yeah. So there's something about challenge that's here. It feels like, how to have that edge without it kind of being, I don't know, critical or kind of overtly critical, in a negative way. Because one of the things that I'm really aware of when we do peer supervision is that we very much bring ourselves to it with our own stories, with our own dramas. And I was wondering, like how you manage that, the personal drama bit of the work with my clinical work. Does that make sense? Like finding a balance there, in terms of whether it becomes more therapeutic rather than supervisory. How to manage that, because that's bound to kind of come in it. That's part of the edge, isn't it? Of like kind of not having a lot of challenge, so it does become a bit tea and cakey. Or where we collude. There's a lot of C's, isn't there, where we can end up colluding and super critical. So something about trying to find ways of how to create the ground that allows it to be, the rich experience it can be. Because I thought I was hearing, like, in your group, maybe I wasn't, a sense where, you could take the personal challenge, and even if it was a bit uncomfortable, and there was a lot to learn from it. So it's that kind of difficult balance, isn't it, between like trying to keep the material rich and real, without it kind of becoming watery and insignificant. And I'm just inviting you to think about ways of holding the space in that way. It was like how in counsel work, which is just a form of group work, I always love, there are 4 key things that you always do in counsel, and they're beautifully simple, and the rules, if you like, or the statements are that you just speak from the heart, listen from the heart, keep it lean. So no great big arias here. And then I said, so keeping it lean and keeping it confidential. But they're quite nice sort of working things, aren't they? Like if you can speak from the heart, listen from the heart, keep it lean, and keep it confidential in whatever way you choose it to be. So other things for your groups, just thinking around, and it feels like this is a really important one, isn't it? Around how to challenge or how to have a perspective. And I guess, when we normally work with, like if it's a supervisor-supervisee relationship, there are many different models that we use or potentially use as part of the supervision relationship. But one of the things that's always really important is that, at some point one of us can kind of helicopter above it and get a, can see what's kind of going on. And I think we can do that as well, in our peer supervision group. And it is sort of like that capacity to pause, kind of helicopter, just really notice what's here, and then sift through it a little bit. Is that mine, or is it yours? Like what's going on?
I actually made that gesture also. I made that gesture while we were having a meeting. I was saying like, okay, something like, somebody's here, you move here, this gesture. Yeah.
Well, it is that it's also about being able to see things from different perspectives as well, which could be, actually when I do the dream workshop, one of the things that we often do is try and see the dream from the different sides of the different dream characters, just so you get a different sense of what's going on. And I think we can do that in peer supervision, where you can work with each other to take a different character in the story. It's a bit like saying, I don't know, this is the layout of the table, yeah? From my side here, there's a glass of water on the right, there's a box of tissues just sort of left of centre, and there are 2 coasters in the top left-hand corner from my perspective. Is that true? Well, if I come here, oh, it's gone, it's not in here. Or if I kind of come over here, oh, now that's on the right and that's on the left. Yeah, it's that quality to kind of see what's happening. Yeah, and to be able to do that for each other can be really helpful. Yeah, almost playing with, let's look at it from this side. Yeah, and if we can reflect that to each other in peer supervision, that's incredibly helpful. But I'm hearing you doing that a little bit when you talk about that perspective too. That's what's happening. Yeah. So let's put in helicopter. Is it OR or ER?
ER.
We have those little moments in your
It sounds like a dinosaur.
And the other bit is, why are you meeting? Did you answer that one?
It's free.
I get that.
It's
Why does it?
It's
Why you
free.
Why are we meeting? ये नहीं मैंने सोचा था लेकिन अब ये भी enjoy करेंगे. And you get more than one perspective, multiple perspective. So there's that
comfort level with the people who've been dining with and who heard your process. So the comfort is one of the main reasons.
because in spite of all the so-called challenges and personal attacks we've made on each other, we're still very well bonded
And
together.
we have grown from that. We've all
Yes.
grown from that.
But that's what I was. That was what felt really important when I was saying is like it's like you can have this
Yes.
and still, and still work with it. Yeah, that's part of the challenge, isn't it?
I think also that being a therapist can be a really lonely profession.
Yeah.
Because it's not something you can go home and you can talk about. And so we were also talking about, like for me when I think back to our peer supervision, I imagine they're so like excited and curious about what's happening and being able to even celebrate the small victories or whatever they are. And them just being able to get it. Or when you're really, really struggling and them just being able to get it and feeling that connection and not feeling so alone. I think that goes a long way. It's a support system.
Yeah, well, let's
really
put
made a
that
very
down.
valid observation. I think ये बहुत बड़ा benefit है. You can actually discuss material or your work with your peers, which you cannot with people at home or anywhere else, except with your supervisor maybe. But this group kind of thing is a privilege. It's not something that I feel we can share with everybody, because basically, first because of the confidentiality, and then people don't even understand why we want to talk about anything heavy. If it's our material, if it has become our material, to kind of don't want to take it into your personal space, into your home and stuff like that.
And also I think we have to remember that we're all learning. There's a long way to go.
Well, that's where we were talking about the growth and the development. I know there's like how much we can learn from one another, right? And then we got to talk about, I think, resource sharing also. Like maybe at times it's like one of us reads something or watches something, so it's also a lovely way to share with one another.
You can spread the cost of training then as well, can't you? You know what I mean? Like where I have a group where we do bits of Hakomi work, the body therapy. So we have a little peer group, and several people have been going off and doing other bits of training, because this stuff becomes really expensive, doesn't it? So like other people will come in and kind of share what's been on their training, so we all get it. But there's something in this that requires a quality of generosity. That like it's where that generous spirit of generosity to share our knowledge and not to hold on to our knowledge. Which can be a bit of a thing. We can, if we're isolated or working, we can kind of hold on to things, thinking, like this is my answer. Whereas if we come from that spirit of generosity, our work shifts.
Oh, we didn't mention, but what I've used in the past in my level 4 peer supervision is that, we give each other clients. We're comfortable with each other's work that we do.
In sales we say you learn one, you do it, and then you teach it. And that's the only way to, polish your own skills. So hanging on to it for progress.
I had a teacher of mine who would say, like if you want to study something, go and teach. There's a truth in that.
Very true.
This is exactly what we're talking about, because we didn't have this kind of peer supervision I did before. So when Microsoft came, it was sandwiched in a week, and there was so much theory. It was an overwhelm because there's so many new words and unlearning the old and learning the new. So this was a very nice space to actually sit there, and obviously whatever parts somebody has understanding from a different perspective, that sharing it made more sense than actually going back to a book and then reading through it all the time. It's just jargon then. And then actually having the experiential sense of what it feels like, and this is what's happening now. That is an amazing learning also. At least for me, I feel that it's always more learning when I have an experiential and practical thing rather than having just this mundane reading all the time.
I just want to know, did he give a book or something?
No.
Because this is twice you mentioned books, so I just want to
Even just the notes.
handouts. Yeah,
The
handouts.
Notes.
And I was like,
What's happening for you?
because I'm like, am I not behind? This is the second time she mentioned. First time I thought it must be notes.
Oh, that's what you were saying to me the other time.
No, I said, let me just check. Clarify.
Okay.
No, but we were envious.
Of
You said envious, right?
yeah, because I was saying, she was saying that the group and how they learned and how they got things going, and I'm like, I'm feeling a little envious because I want this and I don't have it.
No, I'm really hearing there's a difference in Islamabad, maybe than down here, and maybe also than in Lahore, I don't know.
Yeah, Well, like I was telling them, 29th October, there's a girl and we're meeting. So now, if anybody wants to meet, they're welcome. But if people haven't answered or already said no, so.
We don't know what this girl.
No, I'm just saying Islamabad.
Anyway, Karachi is Karachi.
Yes.
I feel really good.
She's a Karachiite.
No, I was saying the food is better here, the snacks are better here too, so. Shaista said food in Karachi is better, I said yes, that's for sure.
I said Karachi.
से खाने अच्छे नहीं है लोग भी बहुत
लोग तो हैं अच्छे।
We're very we're very self-congratulatory as well. We're so good at peer supervision. This is sounding terrible.
You want to hear the truth? You want to hear the truth? You want to hear the truth, Jack?
We're the best. We are the best.
And you better know what we're telling you to do.
The boundaries was an interesting thing that, like, I don't think any of us had ever actually talked about the boundaries of peer supervision before. And so one of the things that actually came up is that some of us, so they see our students as clients, and so about bringing them into the room and talking about people or bringing into supervision people that we know or that we work with, and then how we would like for that to be a boundary, and it hasn't been in the past actually. Yeah.
So then there is something that's special to the Pakistan situation, you know. So again, that we're just noticing, you know, like that happens in therapy, but may exist for peer supervision. But also the fact that, you know, the therapy space is so small here. Actually, I'm not sure if it's any different to a number of places in the UK. Where I think some training organisations, it does get a bit incestuous, you know, so people who do the training then become trainers, and then they may be supervisor to the student who's on that part of the programme, and somebody will also be therapist, you know, and it's kind of like, and that happens, I think, when trainings get a bit incestuous by saying, you know, you have to follow our model, you know, in order to succeed or to qualify. So, you know, there are ways of being with it, and it's maybe around that kind of practice of one's own inner ethics. And maybe that's something we'll be talking about more in terms of, you know, what guides you in your practice, and we'll probably have time to ponder that in a moment, because I think that comes into it, you know, is the way in which our inner ethics comes into the peer supervision group. And what I mean there is my values, you know, that may be different to your values, vis-a-vis that discussion we had around alcohol or smoking dope. Yeah. And there's something about how we can support each other in the development of our own grounded inner ethics. Do you get a sense of what I mean when I say my own inner ethics? It's more about that kind of growth that comes from within me, rather than those rules that are imposed on me from outside, you know. And maybe it requires both, a little bit, you know what I mean, but generally there's something about how we nourish each other to kind of develop that quality of groundedness, where we can just kind of plant ourselves and say, well, this is how it is. This is how it is for me. That's my place. But I wonder if we can return to a very simple question here, and maybe I'll invite you to. Does that feel okay? You know, like just in terms of just kind of touching base, really. I just wanted to do that for you to touch base with with your peer supervision and like, you know, what is important. It might help you again, you know, with this question as well, you know, in your reflections around, you know, what's important to you, you know, in terms of the work. But I want us to, again, as independent practitioners, just take time, maybe with a partner, yeah, that'll work nicely, just to remind yourself, why do I do this work? Then you kind of come back to basics with yourself. Yeah? Why do I do this work? And let's kind of try and stay clear of what another teacher of mine used to say of arias. And arias meaning, you know, this kind of like, because I want peace to develop on earth and everyone.
Miss Universe concept.
Yeah, but you know what I mean, like there's something about really kind of thinking about why I'm here, and this will be the start of some deeper exploration that we'll be doing later on this week, but just to kind of ask that question, what draws me into this? Why am I here? What do I think this therapy malarkey is about? Yeah, because when you're working in an agency, it's a little bit determined for you. Yeah,
It's
a little bit determined for you. That, like, you know, we do this. You know, we do this work in order to, I don't know, relieve suffering through enabling people to give up their addictions. You know, that's terribly worthy and wonderful. But there's something about just now beginning this process for you around.
May I ask a question here before we move on? Can you refer to the agency work as different to the private practice? Yes, it is. But when it comes to the agency work, what are the few salient features that are definitely there? I'd like to hear that from you.
What I think they are.
Yes, what are they?
There may be stakeholders involved in the agency who will determine what it's about. Funders may be giving funding for the work. Yeah. If I'm doing work in an agency, I may need my client hours. I may need the clients much more than, you know, as much as they need me. Would you agree?
I didn't get that. Sorry. What do you mean?
Can anybody else
Well,
explain?
I think here one thing that, I mean, from the very beginning when you talk about agency, I think the concept here is less, I think, for us who are working here than it would be, I think, in the West, right? Because I mean, and I don't know why, I often feel that here it's kind of an in-between, because therapy work isn't really an agency, I think, although there's quite a few maybe who are getting the clients from here, right? Some of us sit somewhere else, some of us sit here, but then as an agency, like therapy work doesn't really, you know, require, there's not really a solid organization. And I don't know, I think it comes in maybe some work in a hospital or so, or then in a school situation. But in a lot of ways, I think a lot are working as independent practitioners, actually for a large part of all our work. Is that correct? If
Yes.
I kind of,
But till the students are doing the diploma hours, they are operating under this, right? They are not seeing anybody separately, are they, students? The students, you both teach. So when they are doing their placement hours, at that level therapy works is
So
quite
they're not
okay.
getting, yeah, so
No,
they're
वहाँ
not
तक तो
getting
it's fine,
paid.
that is, they're not getting
They
paid.
get supervised
Yes,
by
yes,
supervisors from here.
Yeah,
yes.
till then the structure is okay, but once they do that, then we are almost operating like what Lalita has
Yeah,
said.
so that's,
Well, and that's exactly the shift, isn't it? Or that can be one of the things when you're, I am using the term agency, but I am also naming Therapy Works as an agency, in as much as, it's a place where people get their counselling hours.
I sometimes felt very uncomfortable with the realization that in Therapy Works, clients get to sit with so-called therapists who are actually in training, like I was also, totally inexperienced and ill-equipped maybe to deal with clients in the rehab. Now we were told to do just emotional holding, but I realized I was maybe not even skillful enough to do that at times. But because there is such a lack of proper agencies that provide good therapists and good guidelines for trainers, clients get exposed to therapists who are not really therapists, but they're just in training.
Yeah.
And that I think can be very, very dangerous for the clients.
But they are being supervised by
very
supervisors, Amra.
Not
I think
always.
it happens in all agencies, to be honest.
That's
Like
why-
most of the agencies that offer,
It's like,
sort of lower cost counselling. So I think all the agencies in the UK that utilise students, students kind of want to apply to centres so they can practice. That's what you do, and often agency working is about
it's becoming
students
more
practicing.
structured now, but when we were doing the diploma, I thought it was not structured.
They have gone through it. We have a problem in Islamabad because we have the rehab upstairs, right? So a lot of time for workshops and stuff, the clients, the patients would be coming down and hanging out. Or, which I thought was very wrong, because a couple of my colleagues, and we were the first class that were doing this Therapy Works level 4. They were coming down, we were seeing them, yet if we had questions to ask Michael, and it was Michael at that time, it was almost like we were inept, we were not really, we were not really proper counselors, like she said, and then a couple of them made comments like, oh, they're not even real therapists, and they're just students, and we've been given students, and they went and complained to their parents. Then they started complaining, and one of my colleagues really got damaged because of this. So sometimes these kind of boundaries, now I think it's better, now I don't think they come.
Here in the rehab also the clients, the patients would throw this at us
Yeah.
and say, you're not a proper therapist, you're just a trainee.
Also, like in Islamabad, the in clients and out clients are basically intermingling at times too, and there's a lack of professionalism when the people who are in rehab for 3 months are kind of like intertwining with out clients coming in, because it's a completely different feeling going outside to the world and then coming inside. Besides staying inside for a rehab and not being able to go outside, so that change isn't healthy for the rehab patients or the people coming from the outside inside to the rehab center. I feel like it can be, I don't know, it just feels weird watching it at times too, where sometimes I'm literally writing something or talking about something, and the in-clients coming in, they're like just having a cigarette and they can hear everything too. And I feel like it loses that professionalism about rehabilitation.
But on the other hand, the students benefit because they get to have their own personal therapy hours for just 1,000 rupees, of which 500 goes back to Therapy Works and only 500 comes to us. So that's a benefit for the students.
The reason why I asked that question was because when we are writing, then we are all on the same page, because now you know how we are working as agency and different. We've actually not had that experience of agency work. So
No,
we-
no, well, but I think I'm saying that if you've done work within Therapy Works, it is agency work, you know, where like, that would be my sense, because like you come in and you have practice clients, even though you need those clients, and that's a very, it's a kind of an edge, it's a difference, you know, often between like work as a student and work as a qualified person, where like you need the students in order to get your hours.
Yeah, it's a catch-22 almost.
Yeah, you know, it is. I mean, so there is that difference, you know, like and maybe, you know, a difference in terms of how you may need to do your work within an organisation, because that's the protocol that they use within that agency or within that organisation. Whereas as an independent practitioner, you are not necessarily bound by the protocol and so on. Yeah. Those are just some of the things that I'm thinking of, like you know, what is the difference? What are some of those differences? You know, that might impact on, you know, the way in which you almost think about, you know, why you do the work that you do. In some ways, and how it changes potentially, you know, from being an agency worker to an independent practitioner. You know, an independent practitioner where you may have greater choice in terms of the clients you choose to work with. Yeah. You may have, you know, a choice in terms of where you will see people. They're just all things that potentially, you know, impact differently on your work. That's all. But back to that initial question around, why am I here? Why am I doing it? Yeah. Like, you know, it may be that, you know, like based on the Islamabad experience, somebody might think, oh, I can't wait to get out of this place, you know, because it's just so sticky, you know, or I think you said unprofessional or whatever, you know, I can't wait to get out. I know that at the project that I have in Wiltshire, people just want to keep staying, you know, like, so it means we have less spaces for new students to come in, because people just say, no, I just like giving my time here, it's great, you know, partly because of, you know, we offer a lot of CPD, you know, there's a lot of peer supervision that happens, so it's a very different setup. But back to that, but I'm just noticing there's a bit of a resistance to kind of maybe going into just exploring. Why do it? Yeah.
Do you want us to talk about it right now?
Yeah, just sharing it lightly.
Oh, I thought you were supposed to write about it.
Well,
I
I can share with you why I got into it.
Well, just for now, I just really invite you to share that. Ringing.
Shared with the neighbors? Oh,
Yes, so
okay.
basically I was in rehabilitation and I've suffered, I would say, some sort of dependency, addiction, and I think it was kind of at that time it gonna very damage me in a way where I didn't see it, but I feel like now looking back at it, I realized that things like a lot of this was pretty helpful and brought me to a sort of enlightenment but that's not so starting actually the goal is when it's going to clear up my blind spots or of course I have as a person walking around the world, then we don't get
I think so.
I realized
I
also
like
about
bringing
help other people, then sure, I'd love to be able to give what I have out to the world. I've experienced stuff too that I feel that other people should be able to feel. Then at the end of it, I'm like, ultimately, it's just like, I want to be able to
Yeah, it started off like that.
ask the right question. That is for me, that is becoming the right therapist, asking the right question at the right time, making the other person. It doesn't take, I feel like it doesn't restrict me just to do the therapy routine. Sometimes I feel like in a setting, in a restaurant, instead of like, like just asking the right question, will automatically make the person open up, question, wonder, and they will themselves reach that enlightenment. The worst thing, the troubling thing now that I've been in therapy with clients as well, that you can know what's going on, but telling them doesn't want to do anything. Like you could like try like yelling into them, screaming into them, try drilling it into them, you just say whatever. Unless they come into their own, it sounds like the age people. And I feel like that's the crux of my reason to still pursue this, being able to ask the right question. I feel like every day or like every week or every month, every one of these level 5 courses or sessions or seminars is something that I can pick up and use to question the method that I can there's a lot of intellectual curiosity, but there's also a certain level of awareness, and intellectual curiosity to me, but I feel like what I'm trying to wrap around that in a nutshell is that I was hindered because I was told by somebody else on very like by the book on and I feel like by sometimes maybe like cheating with the curiosity that people maybe human have of the intellectual being and bring them to their own awareness and maybe guide them in a way that is something special to me. And like I have that moment. It's a moment like it's very special to me. It's very like you feel like you just went through like a whole journey, travel, whole journey, maybe not physically but emotionally and psychologically. It's very fruitful, very exciting, very cherishable, very powerful. And so, in a nutshell, like I said, I started off trying to do it for me, and I realized that while doing it, if I can help other people too, I'd love to. And also I realized that sometimes, obviously like every therapy session I involve myself, sometimes I walk out of the moment, I feel like a lot lighter. I feel like my own therapy is had like more therapy inside the therapy. And also like so, I feel like being able to improve that, like that taboo or that, kind of like, oh, you must have a mental health issue or something bad is another reason why I want to like change that and make it more acceptable. And it all started in London. I had it so enlightening. Every time I saw it, there's an awakening every time. I like aspired to be for another world. I want to sit with somebody and they can have their awakening every day. Over here, I feel like it's a bit limited because like it's just starting to go. It's not like kind of like fixed position. There's no therapy in lockdown. Started 5 years ago. England has been doing it for the past 30, 40, 50. Then they've been experimenting with shock therapy in 1990s. So like that was my driving force.
Coming to me, such intimate details talking about it. I used to get a sensation of that. And how such a deep thing which what is it that I'm doing? And that maybe here is something for me to pursue because it's close to my heart. I used to feel very loved and important. I didn't have that capacity when I was with that much and then it took me some training
So deeper into devotion
going
does
to the devotional development as well as always started as a project like okay, I'll do it. Let me do something now for myself. Give up, which is probably what I had
Okay, everyone, shall we start to gather in as the evening starts to beckon?
It's too much. And then tonight you just separate too much. It's too much.
Come on out. Okay, I'm really aware that this is really a sort of a bit of an introduction really to kind of checking in with ourselves around why we're doing what we're doing really, and I'm hoping that we'll kind of really uncover it even more during this week, because part of this week I hope you're getting a good sense of is about really becoming reflective practitioners. You know, it's we're moving slightly beyond that kind of doing the skill bit. Yeah, you know, where you can kind of do a bit of a gestalt here, or do a bit of this there, or a bit of that there, into really kind of reviewing who you are as the vehicle for the work. Yeah, that's the edge we're really moving into. Yeah, so it's not just about kind of having lots of bits of knowledge, you know, having good techniques or spotting an enactment. All of those things are important. But my work with you is about really deepening the work into you as practitioners and really going deeply in there. Yeah, and that's partly what the research is about too. It's about really touching in with what's important to you, and so on. So maybe not to share right now, you know, what your thoughts were, unless, I mean, if you want to just give a sense of, like, it sounded like some of you went in deep, did you? You know, like kind of, you know, but do you want to share anything of the experience of it rather than what you talked about? Just to begin to kind of check in with, why the heck do I do this?
That's right, that's kind of what,
Yeah.
what the heck, what a...
yeah, asking myself the same question. Why? Especially after Michael calling it an impossible profession and the waters keep getting murkier and murkier, he was worried. But that's not what we talked about. Though.
And if that question arises, you must have a strong drive to keep on going, right? Drive must be really strong.
That's a really positive way of the last thing I told Anita was, I think I'm just addicted to being overwhelmed. or that feeling of suffering and then being like, oh my god, it's too much, and then being okay, and then feeling again, and then feeling like I'm okay.
Yeah.
And it's dark and hot.
Well, And that's, again, it's really important to kind of just watch that, isn't it? You know, because otherwise we end up in, and I think we'll be looking at it, you know, into that edge state almost. And it's a bit like, you know, my sense is that nobody comes into, no, actually that's not true. I was going to say nobody comes into this with the aim of not helping. And I can't actually fully quantify that or qualify that rather as a statement. But I guess a lot of us come in with a compassionate heart to want to alleviate suffering in some ways, you know, that there is some altruism here, that wish to be of service to others. But it's a real fine edge. It's a real fine edge, isn't it, altruism? You know, and like there are shadow sides to it that I think are helpful to notice. You know, and it's one shadow side is that part of me that just wants to be a bit of a Mother Teresa, you know, that wants to be seen as that lovely woman, you know, or whatever, or that clever woman, or that dynamic woman, or whatever, yeah, or that real skillful therapist, yeah. In which case, it's helpful to become aware of those parts of ourselves, yeah, because actually we can overdo it. This is when we can then really move into compassion burnout. Yeah. I've known just so many practitioners, both in all kinds of helping professions, but you know, within psychology and psychotherapy, who just can't bear to hear another person's voice. You know what I mean? Where it's like, I've had enough. I can't do it. And that's a real compassion burnout, you know,
Yeah.
when you know, and there's something that's really important there about hearing that part of us. Yeah. Anyway, more on that tomorrow. Okay? Wonderful to see you.
Thank you.
Really good to start putting the pieces together.